that represent the maintenance status of the apartment, of the flat, and we chose two variables. If the apartment was excellent, so ready to use, with very good characteristics, internal characteristics, and good if the apartments need some intervention to live in. Then we take the number of bathrooms, the floor level, the construction year, and we choose as a binary variable the position in the OMIS band, to understand in which way the properties, the properties are positioned in the city, and if there will be changes in the preference of the buyers with respect to the position of the properties in the city. So we first collect the database, we check the statistical robustness of this database, and we applied the econometric technique to both database, and we obtain two models, one for the second semester of 2019 and one for the first semester of 2021. Then we check the functional linkage between the independent values, that I don't say which is, it's the price, the selling price, taken as a logarithm, and the independent variables. And after that, we do this for each phase. We compare the results obtained for each phase. I go faster. For the phase one, we have interesting results. As may be obvious, I don't know if you see, there is a direct link for the internal surface, and it's about, I don't remember very well, I'm sorry, it's about 25% the appreciation for the internal floor surface. Then we have an appreciation for the I'm sorry, surface of the garden, and also an appreciation for each bath. We have 3% more for each bath, and a particular appreciation for the state of maintenance. In this phase, it is significant to highlight that there is a particular appreciation for the properties that are located in the that are situated in the central area. The model take these eight variables among the 13 considered. For the phase 2, the results are quite different. The interest for the internal coverage surface is almost the same. We have a direct linkage, and the appreciation in percentile is quite the same, but we have the presence of the surface of the balcony with a direct linkage with the dependent variable, and also it's quite interesting to highlight that there's no preference for properties present in central areas, but there is a preference from properties that are located in peripheral areas. And we made also the comparison between the two phases that are
Rossana, you have 2 more minutes.
Yeah, thank you. I almost done.
You're welcome.
I try to make it faster as possible. Um, we have to we have compare the two phases, and there are significant variation both in the selection of variables for the two phases and in the percentual that the functional linkage uh, express. As you can see, we have the presence of the internal surface, the state of maintenance, the number of bathroom, the level of floor, and the here of the building in both phases. But it interesting to highlight that for the phase 2 compares the variable surface of the balcony, and also there's a change between the omis band taken, that for the first phase is the in the central there's a preference expressed in the central area, and in the second phase there's a preference expressed for the peripheral area. And the difference in appreciation for the central and the peripheral area is quite different. So we make this research chosen a case study for the city of Rome. The methodology could be useful for public subject to plan building strategies that are the expression of the needs, the new needs of the population, and also for private investor to plan effective investment. The results obtained show that are in itinere significant changes in market demand, and we plan to check if possible, as soon as it possible, the post-COVID assessment. So thank you.
Thank you, Rossana. May I ask you whether you feel comfortable with delivering also the second presentation straight away, or would you like us to move on with a different speaker so that you can rest a bit before having your second presentation?
As you prefer. Maybe I need a little bit of water.
Okay, fine. Fine.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. So we move to the fourth paper in today's program, and the authors are Rocco Curto, Alice Barreca, Giorgia Malavasi, and Diana Rolando. The title of the paper is "The Paradox of Fiscal Inequality in Italy: Exploratory Analysis on Property Tax Rates." And this paper, in fact, explores the issue of fiscal equality in cities, in urban settings, and it does so by combining cadastral values and housing property prices and fiscal inequality indicators. The authors seem to argue that there are high levels of fiscal inequality in the 6 metropolitan cities in Italy that made up their sample. But I leave the floor to Alice Barreca and Diana Rolando so that they can deliver their own presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. And good morning, everybody. I am Alice Barreca, and with my colleague, as you can say, Diana Rolando, I am going to present the research developed also with Rocco Curto and Giorgia Malavasi. This research is on the paradox of the fiscal inequality related to the property taxation, which represent an actual and tricky issue in the Italian context. The presentation will follow this outline, and starting with the introduction, it is important to mention that This year, 2021, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, in the last Going for Growth report, urged the Italian government to redefine the tax on the first home ownership. Recent researches and the new report of OECD of September show that the effective marginal coefficients on the properties are significantly lower than those of all other goods. In Italy, the process of property taxation reform has been talked about for many years, but it has never really started. Moreover, the structural changes that emerged in the last decades amplified social inequalities and determined a real territorial polarization between weak and prestigious urban areas, also in the real estate market. The objectives of this research stand on two important issues: to study the relation between property prices and the cadastral values, which determine the amount of property taxed, called IMU in Italy, and quantify and compare this discrepancy between these values across some different Italian cities that were selected to test the proposed approach. The 6 selected cities present a very different mean price in the property market and different dynamism trends in the last years. They represent very different socioeconomic contexts geographically distributed on all the national territory. The methodological approach we followed is based on 3 main steps: a stratified sampling related to luxury properties, the creation of 4 fiscal inequality indicators able to explicit the gap between cadastral values and property price, and finally some regression analysis. Starting from the first step, the sample was stratified only on the luxury properties segment by selecting properties with the highest price published on immobiliare.it from January to March of this year. Due to the lack of transparency in the real estate market in Italy, listing prices were adjusted to be assumed as a proxy of transaction prices. It is interesting to notice that there is a great variability between unitary price of Milan, that is more than 80,000 euro per square meter, and Palermo, that is around 1,700. Moreover, there is a total absence of correspondence between the unitary price and the related cadastral incomes. For example, you can see Naples. By analyzing the cadastral category, it emerged that most of the assets are classified as civil properties, despite they are luxury assets. In Bologna, there are no stately properties, and it is surprising that in Milan and Bologna, around 30% of our sample are classified as economic properties. These first simple result highlight that very well-known problem related to the lack of correctness of the cadastral category attribution. Now I leave the ground to my colleague Diana Rolando for the presentation of the main results.
Okay, thank you, Alice. Good morning, everybody. So the first inequality indicators we developed is the difference between the property price and the cadastral value. By comparing this delta across the considered cities, it emerged an high variability, as you can see in the graph. The highest score is in Milan, and followed by Florence and Naples. The second indicator is the ratio between the property price and its cadastral value, and shows that is very much higher than 1 in all the considered cities. Let's see, for example, on the right, the case of Milan. The property prices are decreasing ordered in purple and correspond to a random distribution of cadastral values in orange. The third indicator is the difference between the property tax hypothetically calculated on the basis of the property market price and the property tax based on cadastral value, that is the IMU tax effectively paid. This third indicator, as we can see here in these graphs, is positive in all the cities, except for very few cases in Bologna, Florence, and Turin. This is interesting because it means that most people pay lower taxes than they should. The fourth indicator represents the calculated tax rate, and it's calculated as the ratio between the IMU tax effectively paid and the property value. Its score confirms the previous results, and the scatter plot here highlights an inverse relations between the IMU tax effectively paid and the property price. And this means that generally low IMU tax values correspond to high property prices. The third and the last step of the methodological approach is based on simple regression analysis. Today we present the results of two ordinary least square models. The first model is aimed to study the relation between the property price and cadastral values, while the second is aimed to study the relation between property prices and the calculated tax rates. The result of the first model showed that cadastral values are very weakly related to property prices. In some cities, the relation between the dependent and explanatory variables is null or very, very low, while in the other cities, there is rather weak. The result of the second model showed that the calculated tax rates are unrelated to property prices. And moreover, these results show that the marginal coefficients are all negative for all cities. This means that the ratio between these variables is in any case inverse, contrary to what it might be expected from a fair tax system. In conclusion, our research highlighted that currently in Italy there is a real fiscal paradox, and that the property taxes are randomly paid. In particular, from our research, it emerged that the attribution of the cadastral category is often not correct. Then, our four fiscal inequality indicators show that cadastral values are randomly related to property prices. And then the result of the regression models confirmed that tax rates are unrelated to property prices. Our research can be developed and improved in the future. For example, by considering all the 8,000 Italian municipalities, or by analyzing the fiscal inequality indicators not only at municipal level, but inside the city. So analyzing the suburban areas and the related some markets. Also by considering properties with the lowest market prices, and also by considering and calculating new coefficients to quickly adjust cadastral incomes to rebalance the fiscal inequality. So in conclusion, it is evident that the revision of the cadastral rates can no longer be postponed because it represents the fundamental step to revise the cadastral incomes and value, and a crucial point to reduce territorial and socioeconomic inequalities. In particular, the reintroduction of the tax on the first home ownership could have positive consequences, but only if the generated incomes will be invested for the redevelopment of the most vulnerable areas. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alice, and thank you, Diana, also for even saving some minutes on your time slot. We now go back to Rossana, unless some of the speakers of the authors of the first paper, namely Francesco Sica and Antonio Nestico, were able to join us. But I'm afraid they...
Sorry, I spoke
Please,
with
Carmen.
Francesco. They have difficulty still now
Okay.
to connect with our workshop. So they ask excuse me, but
Okay.
We are just sorry for that. But the next time,
let's wait. Maybe they can manage to connect later on. So we go back to Rossana Ranieri, and by the way, she is based at the Department of Architecture and Design at the La Sapienza University in Rome. And she is now going to present another paper authored by Pierluigi Morano, Francesco Tajani, Felicia Di Liddo, Paola Amoruso, and herself, Rossana. And the title of the paper is "The Contribution of the Most Influencing Factors on the Housing Rents," and an analysis of in the city of Milan. So it is another case study, but it is based in a different city than the previous one. And the aim of this paper is to identify and discuss the most influential factors that somehow influence, that have a bearing on residential rents. And the methodology the authors chose revolves around evolutionary polynomial regression as an econometric technique. So I leave the floor again to Rossana. And maybe, Rossana, you could switch to presentation mode
Okay.
so that your slides would be better visible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Here we are. So thank you. I'm sorry. I make a mistake. So good morning again. And can you see the presentation?
Yeah, but maybe if you switch to presentation mode, they are larger.
Yes. Yes. Here I am. I'm sorry. So the aim of this research, as the chair has just said, is to identify the most influencing factors on the housing rents. So now we are in the rents sector, and the case study has been chosen the city of Milan. The presentation was organized as follows. First, we express the aim, the objectives of the work, and then we describe a little bit the context of a rental housing market in Italy, and then we go to the case study with the selection of variables and the application of the econometric technique. Then we interpret the results, and we define some conclusions. The aim of the work is, as we say, to analyze the effect of the most influencing factors on housing rents. In particular, with the influence of the effect of the COVID pandemic. We choose the city of Milan, and we investigate the functional relationship with reference to the residential rents with the main intrinsic and extrinsic characteristics. And this research could be a valid reference for the results that are achieved for the private operators, and in particular for the public administration, to monitor housing rent dynamics and to have a solid reference to make fair rental, to make fair the rental dynamics. the rental housing market in Italy is a very big sector. From 2011 to 2018, the number of new rental has grown over the 18%. The Bank of Italy, in a study of 2018, reported that the 20% of Italian families live in rented houses, and the spread of COVID has changed very much the rental sector, maybe more than the housing sector, because in Italy there is a very huge number of students that change city to follow the university and also to work. Obviously, the use of distance learning has changed this dynamic because the students have returned to their native home and leave the big cities, returning home. So the biggest decrease in the rental sector is in the bigger cities where the presence of the biggest university. Also, there is a decrease in rental price, up more or less about 7.5%. And there is also a decrease in the price for flat from 616 to 570 in 2020. But let's get started with the case study. We chose the city of Milan because it's one of the biggest cities where are located the most famous Italian university. We chose 220 residential properties rented in the second half of 2019. And for each property, we choose some intrinsic and extrinsic variables. After I explain which variable we choose. And as the presentation before, we analyzed the database collected from a statistical point of view, and we applied the evolutionary polynomial regression. It's important to highlight that APR has not ever been used for the rental sector, and that's the first time that this technique has been used for the rental sector. And the application of also, I forget, the properties were selected spread on all the communal territory. And we applied the econometric technique to the database, and we found out one model that expresses the dynamic present in the city. So the variables chosen for the intrinsic variable, we chose some surface, like the internal floor surface, the external space, such as gardens or green areas, the surface of balcony, and the presence of external common areas. Then we chose some variables like the floor, the number of bathrooms, the presence of the kitchen in the same room as the living room. And also we chose some information about the maintenance condition of the house. As before, we have excellent, good, and to be restructured. Also, we choose to use the information about the energy performance certificate expressed from A4 to G, and we categorize the better, the middle, and the worst energy performance in 3 categories. Then we add the extrinsic variables, we chose some distance from the most important factors that could influence the choice of a rented house, like the distance from the nearest subway, the distance from the central station, and central train station. We chose Milano Centrale, Central Milan, and the distance from the nearest university center. And we chose the 4 public university that are present in Milan, the main university. Then we choose the distance from the central pole, and for Milan we choose the Duomo, the cathedral. Then the distance from the nearest urban green space, not the smallest, we don't consider the smallest one, we consider the park or the structured garden. And then, such as before, the municipal trade area in which the property is located. And we have central, semi-central, and peripheral. We apply the econometric technique. The dependent variable is the rental price, and we identify a specific model. Yes, let's go to the results so we move faster. For the intrinsic variables, we have interesting results. As we expect, the internal floor surface show a direct linkage, and attesting that there is a higher appreciation for larger residential properties. Also, there is a particular appreciation for the surface of balconies, terrace, or patios. And in addition, there is a particular appreciation for the common areas, so the presence of the condominial areas. In particular, in Milan, this appreciation is for the skyscraper that have many common functions, such as the gym or the box locker, or now I don't have fantasy. So there's a particular appreciation for the common areas. There's also a direct functional linkage for the floor in which the property is located, and as we expected. A particular thing that is important to highlight that at this moment, the maintenance status of the flat, of the apartment, is very appreciated. So there is a direct linkage between the excellent maintenance status and the rental price. For the extrinsic variables, there is a significant thing to highlight, that there is an inverse linkage for the so there's no appreciation for the houses rented in the city center. That's maybe because there's no appreciation for the chaos of the city center, and there's not a particular appreciation for that. And in particular, there's some distance there written here for this different appreciation. And also there is a specific appreciation for the houses rented near to the university. Here we made the average contribution for each factor to better understand which factors influence.
Sorry.
Yes.
Just to inform that Francesco Sica now is in touch with us. So I ask if it's possible to make shorter the presentation because we
Yes.
can save some minutes for Francesco, okay?
Thank you. I go faster.
Thank you.
You welcome. So here there's the average contribution from the most influencing factors, and we can see that the surface are very, very important, and also the state of maintenance of the rented houses. So we make this framework for the city of Milan, and it could be interesting to make a post-COVID framework to better understand how this anomalous event has modified also the rental sector. This study could be a solid reference both for the private and the public administration. And I'm very curious to see if post-COVID the dynamics represented by these frameworks are going to change, and to what extent. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Rossana, again, also for making the efforts of delivering two presentations. And I'd like to leave the floor straight away to Francesco Sica, because we are running short of time, and he's based at the Department of Architecture and Design at the Sapienza University in Rome, and he's going to present this paper, whose title is The Benefit Transfer Method for the Economic Evaluation of Urban Forest. Please, Francesco, the floor is yours.
Sorry, thank you, and sorry for the mistake. So I share my screen. Do you see?
Not really. Okay, yeah, now it's okay.
Okay. Good morning to everyone. I'm Francesco Sica, based in Sapienza University in Rome. The current contribution, entitled The Benefit Transfer Method for Economic Evaluation of Urban Forest, is by Professor Antonio Sticò in Salerno University of Italy and me. The work is for exploring the possible use of a meta-analytic evaluation method to support the economic assessment of nature-based solution as the urban forest. Specifically, the implementation of the benefit transfer method is investigated, and its use is tested with regard to urban forest project in Italy context. The current slide shows the structure of the work. We can start to say that the concept of a Green New Deal was born in the USA in 2019, where Thomas Friedman developed the slogan Green New Deal, which became a unifying legislative aspiration for a bigger legislative proposal that sought to address climate change war. In the last time of 20th century, there were many guidelines at the international level aimed at defending and preserving the urban ecosystem. To achieve these objectives, policies that consider the use of innovative approaches, such as new nature-based solutions, are considered and must be considered in order to achieve these multiple objectives. Every country has been applied multiple types of nature-based solution that can be classified according to the framework proposed by ProGireg project at the European level. The nature-based solution provide many multiple benefits recognized as ecosystem services, which means to mitigate the effects of anthropogenic actions on nature, contribute to psychophysical well-being of the population, and promote economic growth. But the question on the basis of this research can be, what is the contribution ecosystem and their services to the economy, social well-being, jobs, and livelihoods? What opportunities exist for the development of innovative incentives-based programs in urban contexts to conserve nature, such as payment for ecosystem services? And what do estimates of a national wealth and economic potential look like once the state of its environment is considered and is taken into account in the logical of policy management of the territory? To answer of this question, currently the system of environmental economic accounting is proposed as an first international statistical standard for environmental economic accounting to be considered in the evaluation process and in the design and the policy management of the territory. To this regard, the Global Environmental Facility proposed a general framework that includes natural capital and environmental accounting as one of its priorities, with the content flow to be considered in the concrete organization and execution of nature-based solutions. This represents a significant opportunity to increase the development and implementation of the system environmental economic accounting in support of the programmatic agenda post-pandemic emergency. But what are the evaluation methods to use in the respect of this type of framework? A range of evaluation methods are compatible with the system of environmental economic accounting methodological framework for this purpose. Benefit transfer method is not seen as an eligible method in the system of environmental economic accounting, but we propose this method that it should be considered, especially in the experimental stage, in the ecosystem accounting, and the explicit guidance for its use that should be developed in the policy framework and the policy management regarding the development of the city. The benefit transfer method in particular is a fast and cost-effective method that can enable empirical application in situations of limited resources. The benefit transfer method in particular starts from the results of economic analysis relating to area comparable to the territorial context of study. The method is divided in the 3 steps, which regard specifically literature review, the identification of meta-analysis variables, and the construction of a regression function that it used to estimate the economic, social, and environmental value of analysis assets, so the meta-regression model. The principal aim of this contribution is to define the economic value, the total economic value of a nature-based solution, such as the urban forest. So the analysis of the literature review is developed, investigated the principal framework of such as Scopus, inserting specific keywords like urban forests, ecosystem services, willingness to pay. And we have collected some references in literature review that we have studied according to define the principal meta-analytic variables to be considered in the construction of the benefit transfer value with regard to the urban forest. So by analyzing the specific paper, we have extracted the information of the willingness to pay with regard to urban forest, but also other parameters of socioeconomic, environmental, and natural type. Among these, the GDP per capita, the population density. And we have extracted the mean value for each type of parameters. So the third step is the construction and the use of a meta-regression model that it is represented by a simple linear regression model analysis. And we have, according to theoretical and mathematical principles, we have developed a benefit transfer value function that it is very similar to this type of a linear of a meta regression model. In particular, we have developed a meta-analytic regression analysis in order to highlight the interdependencies between the principal variables willingness to pay with the other socioeconomic parameters that we have read and extracted from the paper that we have analyzed. In order to define this final function that we have in the final step of the work implemented with regard to specific urban project that we have revealed and investigated through the Urban Nature Atlas that is constructed after the development of a specific urban project, European project in 2014. And in particular, we have investigated some urban projects in Milan, Rome, Naples, and Catania. And we have implemented the benefit transfer value function with regard to this urban forestry project. For each type of, for each context, we have revealed the parameters that, according to the literature review, are most related, influenced, that are the main driver that can guide the execution of this type of nature-based solution. And we have obtained specific economic value per hectare per year and total economic value per year. And we have revealed that effectively, according to the principal evidences read in the literature, the economic value that we have obtained support the evidences that we have constant and read in the paper that we have extracted from the literature review. In the conclusion, the methodology proposed and applying this work can be combined theoretical methodological contribution developed by research operating in different sectors, but in order to define a systematic scientific framework for potential public and private users. The benefit transfer method approach can be considered in order to implement, but in a specific manner, the system of economic environmental accounting proposed at the international level. And we have can see how the limits of the methodological approach proposed are both in the selection of study works, but also in the parameters that we considered in the construction of the benefit transfer value function. Opportunities to develop this research consist and can be seen in the definition of a quick evaluation method to assess the total economic value, also according to the production of ecosystem services that can be derived by the presence and insertion of specific urban forests in the cities. So this is a basic bibliography that we have considered. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Francesco, for delivering this interesting presentation. We have now come to the end of this session. So unless there are some questions that we could take very briefly, or some concluding remarks by Carmelo Torre, any question? Carmelo, would you like to add something?
Yes, just a list of thoughts as at the beginning. I was thinking about Munda post-normal rationality. We spoke about some unusual events. When we speak about COVID, we are speaking something of unexpected, and the behavior of people is changing quickly. It would be interesting to make some comparison between us is considered in post-normal rationality. That is the concept that we cannot be until the last second rational. When problems are too big to be faced, usually we cannot consider ourselves economically rational. This is a debate that is quite interesting. it's not important if he's right Munda or he's right anybody else, but it's quite interesting if we try to make an interpretation of the behavioral attitude, just qualifying rationality, because it's obvious that all we spoke is based with a hard concept of rationality, or economical rationality. It could be interesting to make a comparison, I think, and I hope that our colleagues that gave so interesting telling about effect in metropolitan areas can go on and going deeper, just to study and join these two different aspects. I think that we have 2 minutes just for saying thank you. I suggest to everybody to follow also the other workshop when it's possible. All of us we have a long time, and I thanks Sandro Bonifazzi for his intervention and the support. I hope to I hope to enjoy with you all the workshop at MEWE, and also the ICCSA conference generally speaking.
Thank you, Carmelo. Let me just thank Lucia Saganetti, who managed this digital session, and all the speakers and the other co-authors, and of course the audience. So thank you, everyone, and stay in touch.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye.
For the next session, we have two Czech, Gaia Dadanise and Giuliano Poli.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I am the assistant for this session.
Nice to meet you.
Now we are online on YouTube.
Sorry, we can start the presentation. We can start the share.
In this session, we have 4 presentations. Yes. 1, 2, 3.
Yes. Okay.
If you want to try to share your screen or your presentation now, you are
Okay.
we can try. For the other participants, if you want to put your name, you can click on 3 points near the phone red, and with in the first line you can insert your name if you want. And I think in 3 minutes we can start. Good morning. In this session, we also have 2 people on present. Okay, if you want to start, the floor is yours.
You can say that the room is 20. Okay. Just to start this section, I'm presenting. I'm Giuliano Poli from the University of Naples, Federico II. And I'm here with my colleague Gaia Valdanise from CNR, National Research Center on Naples. We are glad to be chair of these sections, and we can start now the presentation. Just as a remarks, we can try to concentrate our, we ask to the author to concentrate their presentation in 10 minutes, more or less, in order to have a debate after each presentation or in the closing section. Let's start with the first contribution by Simona Barbaro and Grazia Napoli. And the title of this presentation is "The Financial Costs in Energy Efficient District, Alternative Scenarios from the Demo Sites of the City Feed Program." If the author want to start their presentation and want to share the screen, are welcome.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you for the presentation. I can share my screen. Can you see it?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Can
Now,
you see
yes.
it? Okay. Okay, thank you. I am Simona Barbaro, and I am a PhD student in urban, territorial, and landscape planning of the University of Palermo. I will present a study that is the result between the cooperation between me and my tutor, Professor Grazia Napoli. Our study is focused on the financial parameters that may influence the ability of energy efficient projects at district scale. In particular, the study analyzes the data from demo site of the Cityfied program and proposes new alternative scenarios in order to investigate the financial feasibility of energy efficient action. The presentation consists of 4 parts. The first part introduces the European Programme of Energy Retrofit Project and analyzes characteristics of the My Smart City District programs. Next, the focus shifted to the Cityfied program and then to the financial analysis of its alternative scenarios. Finally, the conclusion and the perspectives of the research are presented. Evaluating the performance of energy retrofitting projects, it's a complex process as it requires the contemporary verification of environmental, social, and economic sustainability. In particular, from an economic point of view, entrepreneurs and private owners are willing to invest when they expect the project to be profitable. So it is crucial to assess the economic viability of energy project, and to do this, we see later, can be used indicators such as the net present value of the internal rate of return. The European Union has recently launched the European Green Deal, but has previously funded several programs to try to share experience and facilitate large-scale replication of urban energy efficient intervention, including these programs, the program of My Smart City District Group. So these 8 programs represent an important source of data and knowledge. In a previous study, we compared the characteristics of the programs, and in order to analyze some of the critical issues affecting the economic viability of the project. Its result that are many different in terms of coordinator, strategical approach, share of European funding, but also in terms of energy and CO2 savings achieved, as you can see in this table. This slide shows some results of our analysis. First of all, it is important to underline that for each program, European funding correspond to 54% to 64% of the cost of energy efficient measure. That means this means that European funding play a key role in the achieving economic viability. In a previously study, we analyzed the ZEN program. Instead, in this work, we have focused on the certified program to investigate the variation of some financial parameters, in particular the share of European grants and the share of loans. In this slide shows some general data about the certified program and its objectives. In particular, Certify has developed technology and the solution to optimize the renovation of residential districts and integrate the district heating system and the renewable energy source. Certify was implemented in 3 pilot projects in different urban and socioeconomic contexts. The Manisa district in Soma, Turkey, the Torrelago district in Laguna de Duero, Spain, and the Linero district in Land, Sweden. In addition, the program created a city cluster and a community of interest of many cities. These are the main characteristics of the 3 demo sites. The analysis shows that the type of heating system strongly influences feasibility. For example, the coal-fired stoves heating system required a greater investment in Soma than in Laguna de Duero Land, where the buildings were equipped with the district heating. Another main element was the ownership system. For example, also in Soma, the change of ownership between 2 public companies caused a partial execution of the project. In any case, the type of ownership is linked to the type of financing and the type of project management. Certified required a total investment of more than 36 million. 39 million were allocated to the 3 demonstration sites and were divided into funds from private or public companies and the grants from the European Commission. Our study hypothesized a few of alternative scenarios, each of which correspond to different financing parameters and different type of capital in order to assess how the main economic indicator reacts. The indicators selected to carry out this analysis were net present value and internal rate of return. The financial analysis carried out were carried out for the Soma and Laguna de Duero sites, but not for the land sites. And for the Soma sites, the 4 scenarios were identified according to different composition of venture capital and grants, in order to verify not public funding at a district scale is related to economic feasibility. The net present values are recalculated by applying a discount rate ranging from 0 to 6%. On the other hand, for the Laguna de Duero sites, 4 new scenarios are diversified by the capital structure, that is a combination of debt and equity. The net present values are evaluated applying a discount rate that ranges from 0 to 6%, and for a rate of financing cost that ranges from 1 to 3%. In both cases, the internal rate of returns are recalculated. For the Soma sites, this slide shows retrofitting measure implemented by the project. To assess the net present value and internal rate of return of each measure were used some original data, such as total investment and energy savings and others. In addition, a discount rate of 2% was used for the evaluation of economic viability as the limiting rate. In contrast, data on the type of capital invested and other financial parameters were modified. and the two economic indicators were then recalculated consider 4 scenarios based on the percent of funds and the grants available. This slide shows the trends of the net present value for all intervention, considering a variable discount rate between 0 and 6%, and highlighting with a red line the value at 2%, which represents the minimum discount rate limit set by the project, below which there is no economic viability. The graph have very different curves in terms of position and shapes, and the intervention are affected by grants to different degrees. 3 measures, building insulation, domestic hot water, and LED lighting, have always have positive values, but with and without grants, so they do not need to be financially supported. The district heating system measure, in particular, is the one that would benefit most from a grant, because the initial cost of the intervention is very high, and the other measures are profitable without any grants, only applying very low rates between 0 and 2%, but can achieve good economic feasibility if the subsidy covers at least 25% of the investment cost. The internal rate of return of the scenarios shows in this slide reflect similar difference to those described before. For example, LED lighting is always affordable even without subsidies and grants. And on the other hand, if the investment for a district heating system is fully covered by own funds, the internal rate of return is about 2%. And therefore, the intervention will not be profitable, but this value increases when grants can be used. In the Laguna de Douro demonstration site, about 38% of the cost is granted by the European Commission, while the remaining cost is covered by an ESCO and other private company. In this case, the scenarios are diversified by the capital structure, which is a combination of debt and equity, as the amount of a loan could be less than 100% of the investment. Therefore, in order to evaluate the net present value and the internal rate of return, the original data are related to private investment, annual cost in the baseline period, and others. And in addition, a discount rate of 4.3% was used to evaluation the economic viability as the limiting rate. Also, in this case, the 2 economic indicators were then recalculated considering the 4 alternative scenarios of the type of financing. In this case, based on the percent of loan and funds available. This slide shows the trends in the net present value that have been assessed by applying a discount rate ranging from 0 to 6%, and for a cost of funding rate ranging from 1% to 3%. The graphs show that the elasticity of net present value with respect to the discount rate varies between scenarios depending on the distribution of the cost between present and future. Obviously, the net present value is either for the scenario with the lowest funding share. However, the intervention never achieves affordability. All the net present value and all internal rate of return are negative or lower than 1%. Only if the financing cost rate is 1% and the discount rate is close to 0, the project achieves a very low profitability. In conclusion, the analysis of the intervention of the certified program showed that the characteristic of the energy efficient measure can vary so much as to generate opposite results in terms of economic feasibility. Indeed, some interventions are very profitable, as in the case of the Soman demonstration side, with other interventions do not react the minimum cost effectiveness ratio, even if a subside covers 50% of the investment cost. Furthermore, financial parameters play a key role in the involvement of the private companies and homeowners, and results indicated the financial cost and the risk sharing influence both the net present value and international rate of return, although they are not able to radically change the economic performance of a project when it is very bad. On the other hand, public subsidy allows the flow of savings and cost evidence to be appreciated in the medium terms by directly reducing the initial investment. And this is particularly relevant in the case of urban scale infrastructure projects, such as district heating plants, whose initial cost can be very high, as in the case of Soma. However, the amount of subsidy to be paid is both a political and economic question, as the cash flow does not include all the negative externalities, such as pollution, and that are avoided through the energy efficient project, noting the change in the indoor comfort or homes, which can result in better health of the inhabitants and lower public health expenditure. Therefore, financial and economic evaluation can support the prior analysis of the project performance by defining alternative scenario in order to identify the best combination of characteristics and parameters, including financial one, for an urban energy generation project to achieve economic viability. And this is this is the reference, and thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. If there are some questions from the general public, we can do it now.
Giuliano, I have a question
Okay.
for breaking ice.
A question for our chair. Please, Gaia.
Many thanks, Mona, for your presentation. Very interesting research about financial cost on retrofitting projects. I have two very quickly questions about one about the criteria indicators in the 3 dimensions of environmental sustainability, social sustainability, and economic sustainability of retrofitting projects. Some example, if you can explain to us, and also about I find very interesting the share of funds and EU grants, and I want to understand which kind of funds or fundraising strategies was applied in the project. Thanks.
Thank you for the questions. I really appreciate it. And about the evaluation of energy retrofitting project, the social sustainability and environmental and economic sustainability. And there are the 3 points that are crucial for us for the evaluating of energy retrofitting project, of course. And from an environmental point of view, the primary objectives in a retrofit project are to increase the use of renewable resource and to reduce energy consumption and CO2 emission. In addition, the overall sustainability of the project must also be considered, which must generate the least possible impact on the environmental during its entire life cycle. And for a social point of view, it is essential to directly involve residential in energy efficient projects, as they play an active role in the management of the intervention, and many measures can be inefficient without their participation, of course. And finally, from an economic point of view, evaluation of energy refurbishment project allow the economic viability and to be expressed through a series of indicators that are very important for owners and private and interpreters. And this is so. I hope I can answer of your first question. And about the second questions about grants, and we consider the grants and the, that are also represented in the project, and so we can report with the report of the demo sites of certified program contains, with of course our analysis and our different parameters.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, Gaia. I ask those in the room if they have any question. No? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Are some questions about
for now
the first presentation? We can. Okay, we can start with the second one. Yes. Okay. So we have another very interesting presentation of Giuseppe Bombino, Francesco Calabro, Giuseppina Cassalia, and Lidia Errante, Viviana Vinci. The title is Inclusive Strategic Programming, Methodological Aspect of the Case Study of the Ionian Valleys of Peloritani, Sicily. This paper is illustrate, investigate a multidisciplinary research activity carried out of part of an institutional collaboration between the Mediterranean University of Reggio Calabria and 18 Sicilian municipalities located in the area called Ionian Valleys of Peloritani. So please, the authors, the floor is yours. There aren't. I don't see. Probably there are some participants that haven't the name.
we can pass to the next participant.
Okay. The third presentation.
Sorry, Gaia, but Marta Botero is present.
So we can move on the third presentation.
Marta Del Lovo is here. Okay. Come. Just one minute, because we have to.
So the third presentation.
1 minute. Okay. Yes. Okay. Can you see me? Yes. No. Okay. Okay.
Yes, I see you.
Okay, perfect. Okay. You can see the screen. Can you see the screen, the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
So
we can start with the third presentation.
Okay.
Marta Botero, Marina Bravi, Caterina Caprioli, Federico Dell'Anna, Marta Dell'Ovo, Alessandra Oppio, New Housing Preferences in the COVID-19 era, a best to worst scaling experiment, a very interesting analysis and rethinking of the way of life and new pre- and post-pandemic needs related to the use of domestic spaces necessary to work, study, or carry out other daily activities. And Politecnico Milan and Turin Polytechnic, with the collaboration of the Institute of Study and Research Immobiliari, have launched a survey for exploring these new needs and preference of residents. So please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. So as you were explaining before, this is a joint research between Politecnico di Milano, Torino, and Scenari Immobiliari in order to explore the preferences that has been changed according to the situation that we lived of the pandemic situation for the housing preferences. So after a small introduction concerning the context, we are going to explain you the methodology that we apply in order to develop and to administrate our questionnaire. We will show you our first results about this questionnaire because it's still in progress, the research, and then some conclusion and future perspective, how we would like to develop and further, let's say, analyze this research. So these are some of the newspaper that has been published, let's say, in the European context after the decision about the lockdown. So we can see how different kind of countries decided to apply the same they decided to, let's say, to solve the problem in that moment in the same way. So trying to force people to live within their places in the lockdown situation. So these are some of the most important European newspaper, but focusing more in detail about the Italian context, we were trying to understand how was the situation according to the real estate market and the sale before the COVID-19. So in Italy, in detail, there were sale raising, and the most dynamic cities were Milan and Turin. But if we look at the property, if you look at the property, the houses, let's say the building, we can see that most of them, the 60%, they were being realized before the anti-seismic law. So it means that they are old and they're not able anymore to meet the new law requirements and also the new necessity of people. So this is why, as you can see, most of people, let's say more than 53% of the population decided to change, to renew their own places in order to better, let's say, fit the new necessities, the new demands, and also the new demands of the society, maybe. So we can see how also most of the decision made by people in order to change their own places, they were moving to a more, let's say, more sustainable point of view. So also they decided to apply sustainable requirements within their own places. But then, as we can see, the pandemic and the lockdown have arrived. So we are trying to understand how this situation and this period affect our daily life and also our idea about our places and our houses. We can see that during the pandemic and after the pandemic, I think that all of you answered to different kind of questionnaire, online questionnaire, and they were having different kind of objectives. So some of them we were trying to understand which are, for example, our mental health situation and how this period affects our mental health. In other cases, some questionnaires, they were more focusing in understanding how, for example, our places were able and flexible for meeting the new requirements for the smart working, for example. And the questionnaire have been developed both by different kind of scholars, so by the university, let's say, and then also by private and public institutions. So in order to understand where the market is going after the lockdown. And they were also trying to understand how the spaces maybe are, if they are flexible, what we would like to change, and also how our behavior change according to this situation and according to our closest relation with our houses. And in this, given these premises and also in this context, also we decided to develop a questionnaire not focus on the health of people, let's say, or the behavior of people more according to our perception, but more according to how maybe they would like to modify their own places, and if they would like to change actually not only the place within our wall, but also they would like to move in another context, in another city, in another kind of, let's say, urban or more in a periphery. And to develop this questionnaire, the methodology we decided to apply is the best worst scaling that has been developed by Finn and Lovier in 1992. They were more focused on the healthcare sector.